Are still bearish for Bitcoin, hitting the support at the 100 period moving average. So I'll be watching to see if we try to bounce underneath it off the trend line, excluding the shadow, or if we go down a little bit lower towards 54 or 55,000, hit the trend line, and then try to bounce. Again, eventually, if Bitcoin does try to bounce, it could still form a divergence here before all is said and done. Any indicators like right here and on things like the RSI in the weekly time frame, things like that. We've seen signals go back and forth from bullish to bearish, and really just showing that, again, we've been going sideways, but we've been drifting lower. We're now down 23%. We'll see what happens. Got to be able to get back above the line. Got to be able to see it turn blue if we're going to get back above the 100 period moving average and stay above it in the daily time frame. This is important. This is the pitchfork. And again, look where we're at. I talked about this upper boundary, turning off of this upper boundary. Well, we didn't quite reach it. It's the expanded 1.5% boundary of the Fibonacci pitchfork. We were just shy of that level, and we turned down now. We peaked 2 months ago, okay, so far. Now, we still may take that level out, but if we do attempt to bounce off of the trend line here, and look at, I've got the blue trend line, I've got the black trend line. That is the same one as the red, very close to it. And again, this is excluding the shadow here and using this low, and again, intersecting with this area right here from this high and this high right here, and this trend line right here, the black one, intersects with that, with the levels. We're just slightly violating it. Do you see this? If we go a little bit lower, you have the, including the shadow, you have the blue trend line, including the shadow, just a little bit lower, maybe at the 54, 55,000. We hit 56,000. Bounce off one of these trend lines and, you know, end up closing the week back above this one. You can try to get traction back up, and if you do try to bottom out here, you still may go back up, make a new high, hit the upper boundary of the pitchfork, and then still top out and turn with the divergence on the RSI in the weekly time frame. The bull scenario would be we clear 69,000, you get above the 69,000 area, and you stay above it, and you don't drop back below it. So this trend line could be very, very important here if we try to bounce off the blue one, or excluding the shadow, the black one here, have it marked as red with the daily chart. See the Fibonacci channel here, again, right here from this trend line, and right here, this low, excluding the shadow. We had an overthrow a couple of times there, and then right here, this upper boundary right here, we overthrew that. That's the channel. If we go back and we bounce off this midpoint right here, from this high to this high to this level we're at right now, if we bounce off this level of support, then we can go back up and hit the channel, still make a new high. We still may not exceed this level if we can't clear the downward channel line. But you do have a potential bull flag that can give us a breakout, a push higher, and then you can still come down, or a legitimate breakout. You get above 69,000 and you don't drop back below it. So again, wanted to show you these trend lines here in the weekly time frame with the fib channel with the pitchfork. So this week I'll be watching these trend lines, the rising trend line here, this trend line of support right here. Again, do we close above it? Do we bounce off of the black trend line or the blue trend line here? And again, close the week out above the 100 period moving average, above the 20 week, or do we break these levels? If we break these levels and hold below them, bouncing back up, we're below the 100 period, but if we bounce off of it, that's bullish. If we break it and hold below it, that's bearish. And we're at the line in the sand. Signals are still bearish for Bitcoin, so I'm watching to see, does it try to bounce off the 100 period, or do we get a big break of that level? And if we do, it's going to be extremely bearish. If we bounce off this level, that's going to be extremely bullish. But signals are still bearish for Bitcoin. Critical mass here in the daily time frame. Cloud is still bearish. Momentum is still bearish. Signals are still bearish here. Still dropping to new lows. And again, the balance of power is still bearish as we've gone sideways for Bitcoin and then have now dropped 23%. We've drifted lower. This is showing the sellers have been in control as, again, we've hit the 69,000 sellers selling into the rally. each time we hit 69,000. So again, if we can try to bounce off the 100 period in the daily time frame, then that could flip things around. We drop below it, you're going to get a bigger sell-off. Bitcoin just turned off of VWAP resistance. It's violating this VWAP support over here a bit, but it's hitting our 100 period moving average and hitting the trend line, excluding the shadow, just above the trend line, including the shadow. So again, they're breaking that level. Trend lines start dropping below the 20-week moving average. That's going to be very bearish. Bounce off these levels. That's going to be bullish. You see the sideways action with the trending candlesticks going back and forth from bullish to bearish to bullish to bearish. Sell signal still remains throughout the decline. We're hitting key support at the 100 period and the 20-week moving average. Rising trend line of support. So for the rest of the week here, I'll be watching this blue trend line. I'll be watching the red trend line, excluding the shadow. Right now, signals still remain bearish for the most part for Bitcoin. And I'm negative. We're hitting key support. Are we going to break the support? Are we going to bounce off the support? And that's really going to determine Bitcoin's future. You lose this area of support, it's extremely bearish. You bounce off of this area of support, it's extremely bullish. It's the line in the sand for Bitcoin. The 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame, the 100-day moving average in the daily time frame. Bitcoin is up 1.85%. It was during the session in negative territory, going back and testing the lows. Again, there is major support. This is the 100 period moving average. The trend lines of support, I'll zoom out and show you in a moment. But again, if we close here above the open right there, again, you have a pretty nice looking bull flag pattern for Bitcoin. Okay, and Bitcoin's now dropped 23.31%. I told you over here at the support zone that I was looking to see if we would break it or if we would bounce the 59,000-60,000 area. We ended up dropping from the high to the low 19%, just over 19%. I was watching to see if the momentum would continue down. It did not. I closed my short position. The majority of that moved down back to long, and I was watching to see if we'd make it back up to here. We did not. We stalled at the 20 period. We began to turn down just below our 50 period moving average. We're going along in the 60,000 area again. Closed my short. Talked to you about that. I closed my long for a small gain and went back to short here. I told you we were likely going to ride down to that 100 period and the trend line, which I've been talking so much about. We're now there. So now I'm flipping the trade. Locking in gains on my short and now flipping the trade and trying a long at the 57,000 area. Down to 56,000, hitting the trend line, trying to bounce. Try to take that level out again today, and we still may reach the trend line, which I'll show you in a moment. You can zoom out and see it. We get back above the 100 period moving average. I can safely add to my long position as long as we hold above the 100 period. Now, as what I'm doing is if we start going lower of the 20-week moving average, we're testing the 20-week right now just below our 100-day moving average. And if we start losing the 20-week moving average, then again, I can flip the trade back to bearish. But right here, again, I think that if the dollar starts moving down, I think Bitcoin can find a bottom. And I still think you've got a potential bull flag here that could come up to the upper end here of the channel to 69,000 again right here. And if this thing ends up breaking out, it buys Bitcoin more time. If it is in a topping process, if it is in a new bull market, you break above this level, you got to hold above it and then above it. The dollar recently breaking out, likely going to back test. That could help Bitcoin for the short term. That's hurt Bitcoin for the short term here, in that it's made it drop 23.31%. Bitcoin can rebound and either form a topping process, or if it's in a new bull market, you got to clear 69,000 and stay above it. So far, we have not been able to do it. That dotted red line is 69,000. We had one attempt, it failed. We had two attempts, it failed. We had three attempts, it failed. Every attempt has now failed. And again, we could have attempted a fourth time, but you got to get above 69,000, stay above it. I think you could be in a topping process, still move to new high. The dollar does pull back. It would have to completely reverse in order for Bitcoin to be in a new bull market, and we'd have to clear 69,000 and never drop below it. throughout the duration of the bull market. So again, we hit the 56,000 area. I'm playing this area here. Again, I told you the trend line. Looking to flip my trade there in the 100 period moving average. We blew through it. I told you if we did, that trend line comes into play. Just say this, Bitcoin is going sideways, drifting lower, okay, but it's been going sideways and then now drifting lower. And again, they're consolidating for a push higher or forming a topping process. Again, we could still have a lower high and a lower low and still may get another lower high if we rebound off the trend line and get back above our 100 period. Dollar gets a bigger pullback, and if the stock market tries to move towards 5,200, actually trying to bottom out and rebound, we could see Bitcoin do the same, attempt to go and test the highs. Now here it is. Bitcoin is currently up 1.87% at the moment, currently up $1,000. It's at 59,000 and some change in the low 59,300 area. It went as low as the 56,000 area. This trend line, this is the trend line I was watching right here. This excludes the shadow, the red one. The blue one includes the shadow. We still may go lower and hit it, but if we don't take that level out, drop below it, stay below it, drop below the 20-week moving average, stay below it, then Bitcoin will get a rebound off of this area. Again, last time we hit the 100 period, we dropped below it slightly and rebounded, got a bottoming tail there. Here, after the sell-off, we eventually got above the 100 period, and again, good things happen. So either we're going to bounce or break this area. And as we're doing it, as we're testing the 100 and just slightly violating it, we're forming a possible bull flag pattern. So just something I'm watching. And if the bull flag pattern plays out, we come up here and eventually break out, then Bitcoin get a legitimate breakout in a new bull market, staying above 69,000, never dropping below it again throughout the bull market phase, or a topping process where it comes back down and eventually crashes down and we take out the trend line. If we do it immediately, then that's going to be bearish. If we bounce off this area, then that would be bullish. And again, as you know, I talk about, I'm a big believer in the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. That's the little pink line right here. And again, if we bounce off of it, that's going to be a good thing for Bitcoin. If we break it and drop below it here, which we broke it, but if we can't get back above it, then that's going to be bearish for Bitcoin. If you break it and get back above it, bullish. Bounce off of it, bullish. But if you break it and can't get back above it, bearish. So I'm flipping the trade right here. We start breaking the trend line. We start breaking down below the 20 period here, start moving a little bit lower. Then again, then I'll go ahead and back to bearish. But right now, again, we're testing key support, and we very well could try to form a bottom right here. Well, you say there's no divergence yet right here. Well, there wasn't a divergence at the January low either. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. In January, there was a bullish divergence here. Pardon me, September over here. January, there wasn't. Again, I'm a big believer in the 100 period. I took profits on my short, the 57,000 area, flipping it back to long. We'll see what happens. If it plays out, I write it higher. If it doesn't play out, I'll get stopped out. Again, we start moving below this trend line, the blue trend line right here. We start taking out the 20 period moving average. Then very well could get stopped out. We may, though, still hit that blue trend line before all is said and done. If we do, I might buy some more. If we start taking it out, and we start taking out the 8-week moving average, and it looks like we're going to, try to take it out and not bounce off of it, but stay below it, then I'll turn back to bearish and go short. And this is a trader's environment right here, as we've just kind of been in this trading range. So been short, been long, back to short, now close that, now back to long. We'll see what happens. But right now, we're testing. We broke the cloud, we broke the 100, we're testing the trend lines. Good chance you're going to try to get some kind of bounce and rebound right at this level. Like I said, we still, listen carefully, we still might hit the blue trend line, including the shadow, before all is said and done, which is just slightly lower. I told you I was looking for, the trend line to act as support. We broke through the 100 period moving average. Now, if we get back above the 100 period moving average, again, that's going to be bullish. You can get above it and stay above it. But if you drop below it, you break the trend line, and that's going to be bearish. Taking it out, do we bounce now or do we stay below the 100 period? We're trying to get back above it as I'm speaking right now. We may take out the 56,000 area and go a little bit lower, but again, this is the area I told you that I was looking to flip my trade back to bullish. Then it's the waiting game. You break, that's bearish. You bounce, that's bullish. That's as simple as that. Here it is right here. This is the 100 period moving average. When you're above it, things are green, good things are happening. When you're below it, things are red, bad things are happening. We're at the line in the sand right now, where again, we've slipped below it. We did over here too. We either have to bounce, rebound, and bottom, or we're going to drop below it, hold below it, and things are going to go red like they did back over here. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. We're now testing it right now, slightly violating it, trying to rebound off the trend line. Again, when you're below the 100 period, bad stuff's happening. Tried to get above it here, it failed. More bad stuff happened. You get above it here, good stuff's happening. You bounced off of it. You went sideways, back and forth. You got back above it here, good things happen. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. It's the line in the sand. It defines difference between the bulls and the bears. Up below it, that's bearish. We bounce off of it, that's bullish, and that's really what it comes down to. Things have pulled back here. We've dropped over 23%. We find a bottom, we're going to bounce here. If we're going to get a bigger sell-off, we're going to break through this area, break through the trend line, and start taking out the 20-week moving average. 100 and the 20-week are very close. We broke the 100, and we're right at the 20-week moving average right now. Right now, we still have the 20 period here above the 100 period. If it can hold above it, you can get a bounce, we can resume. But we've lost the 20 period. But if the 20 period starts dropping below the 100 period, then it can lead to a bigger decline. If we bounce here and then get back above the 20 period moving average, and especially the 50, that would be bullish. If we see the 20 cross below the 100 period and drop below both of those moving averages, a whole below both of them, I should say, and can't recover, that would be bearish. So Bitcoin, it's a 100 period, very, very similar. We violated the 100 period here. We're just right at that 20-week moving average, almost at the same levels. Not quite, not perfect, very close to one another. Now, this is the weekly chart of Bitcoin. This is the 20-week moving average. We're holding above the 20-week moving average. As long as we do, things are positive. You start taking out the 20-week moving average like you did over here, then things start going to bearish. Bad things start happening. Above it, good things are happening. Good things are happening. You start losing this area of support, then it's going to be curtains for Bitcoin if we drop below it and stay below it. Bounce off of it, you can go make a new high, you can get a new bull market. There are some real problems with that, with recession on its way and a Fed pivot eventually. Problematic for the stock market. But if we bounce here, that's going to be bullish. If we break this level, that's going to be bearish. Again, this red line is the 69,000 area. We've made 3 attempts to try to get above it. Each attempt has failed so far. Our peak at the 73,000 area has been the peak so far. Now, earlier in the week, we were down 9%. Currently, we're down 9.25%. Again, slightly above that 20-week moving average. We still may hit it, and if we do, you can hit that trend line, including the shadow that we're talking about in this video. What the bar looks like by the end of the week, but the problem is that Bitcoin is still above the 20, but it lost the 10-week moving average, which is bearish. Okay, if we can bounce off the 20, then that's going to be bullish. But if you lose the 10 and drop below the 20, and the 20 then becomes resistance, then that's going to be bearish. So again, we're at a moment where are we going to bounce off the 20 and the 100 period, or are we going to break them and drop below them and stay below them, and it's going to be resistance. Drop below it and just keep going. Bitcoin is at an important place right here, and that's why I'm saying if we start losing the 20-week here, we start dropping below this area, we start dropping below the trend line, then it's time to get out of Dodge. Go back to short. But if we can bounce here, I'm going to stick with my long and try to ride this up, because we could either ride this up and go on off to the races, or that would be that we get above 69,000, stay above it, never drop back below it for the rest of the bull market, or we come up here and we get a larger topping process and then we drop. So again, both of those scenarios play if we bounce off the 20-week, if we can bounce off the 100. Now, listen to me carefully. Again, losing these levels week, the trend line of support that I showed you, the blue trend line, a few $1,000s under 56,000. Again, I'm going to get stopped out and I'm going to flip back to a short position because, again, Bitcoin falls the 20-week moving average. Bitcoin falls the 100-day moving average. We're also at critical mass. We've already reached it. We haven't quite reached the 20-week moving average, but we have reached critical mass, and we're trying to bounce off of it. Last time we hit critical mass, we formed a bottom. Okay? Here we are kind of going sideways. But again, if we lose the cloud, the rainbow cloud, which we are doing, and can't find support at critical mass here in the weekly time frame, then that would be very bearish. But if we can bounce off critical mass and try to get back above the cloud for the weekends or going forward, bouncing off the 20, bouncing off the 100-day, then that would be bullish. Right now, have been bullish. Balance of power has been bullish. Testing critical mass. We're just above the 20-week, and we've taken out the 100 period. So do we bounce at these levels? The dollar begin to pull back, break these levels. And if the dollar pulls back, pretty good shot. You're going to try to bounce off of these levels. Break the rainbow cloud. We break critical mass like we did over here. That's going to be bearish. And then you can hold below those levels and bad things start happening. Bounce off this level, good things can happen. So again, we're at a crucial level of support. Critical mass, the rainbow cloud, we've now breached it. I told you if we took out 60,000, you're going to breach it, 59, 60,000. If you do, I talked about the 56, 57,000 area. And the trend line of support, which is just below that, that's a blue trend line I'm talking about in this video. It's just directly underneath the 56, 57,000 area, which is, again, where I've been talking about critical masses. We broke 60,000, you got critical mass at the 56, 57,000 area. Below that, you've got the blue trend line. We're already hitting the red trend line. Here it is again. Again, if you go a little bit lower, you can hit the blue trend line, but we're already hitting the red trend line, excluding the shadow. So Bitcoin bounces off this 56,000, 57,000 area, then we can try to rebound, get back above the 100. If we go a little bit lower, be watching the 20-week moving average. You take it out, again, you can get a bigger correction, or you can get a reversal if you stay below it. Yields are dropping today. After the Fed, the dollar is dropping today. So again, this could help the stock market. This could help Bitcoin, which is testing the 100-period moving average and major trend line of support that I've been talking about. And I'll show you support levels in just a second. But we're turning down another 0.5% on the dollar, turning down on the 10-year. And again, this could help Bitcoin form a bottom. Surrounding our 100-day moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100-day moving average. Bitcoin has a negative correlation with the dollar. And as the dollar has been coming back down, Bitcoin rose back up. Bottomed and began to surge in January. Bitcoin sold off in January, and then it bottomed in January. The dollar kept going a little bit and kind of went sideways as we started this move higher and began to pull back in February as we got traction on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin surged and the dollar sold off. And then the dollar formed a bull flag pattern, a smaller one here, and Bitcoin it broke out of that and it surged, and Bitcoin went sideways and down. So again, they have a negative correlation. The dollar was breaking out. Now the dollar's had the surge higher. If it pulls back to the 50 and the 200, that can help Bitcoin for the short term. And here, let me just bring it up close. And here you can see the smaller bull flag that formed after we broke out of the channel there. And again, the push higher, the push lower here. So again, if we pull back here, we'll be watching to see if that helps Bitcoin find a bottom surrounding our 100-period moving average we'll be talking about in this video. The dollar's pulling back with the Fed, so is a 10-year Treasury note yield. Again, they have both broken out of a downtrend. They have both broken out above overhead resistance. And again, we could get a back test of this breakout of this trend line And if we do, we could even come back to this trend line right here where they intersect. That could help Bitcoin for the short term rebound and possibly move to new highs if in fact the dollar pulls back either to horizontal support or back test the trend line here in the weekly time frame. True for the market. The market could try to find, the stock market could try to find a bottom. S&P could still go rally up and fill that gap at 5,200, even move to new highs. You see the dollar begin to pull back. A rally with the market, a Fed day, because there was concerns that the Fed was going to put a rate hike on the table again, and Powell dismissed that possibility. Powell also dismissed the concern about stagflation, which has been all over the internet. So that's why we saw initially a rally, but again, we gave it back with the stock market. Coin tried to rally and ended up selling off and closing down. See what's going on with Bitcoin in this video.